The battle for New Helena lasted exactly 17 minutes. Jake watched from the command center as his 7-year-old children orchestrated the colony's defense with a precision that military strategists would study for decades to come. Every weapon system, every shield generator, every piece of defensive equipment worked in perfect harmony as if controlled by a single brilliant mind. The Krillian ships had expected to face a typical human colony with standard defenses. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. The colony's defensive grid responded to their attacks before they were even launched, predicting weapon trajectories and adjusting shield configurations in real time. Mining robots emerged from the underground tunnels and began launching precisely targeted chunks of asteroid ore that struck the enemy ships with devastating accuracy. How are they doing this? Lisa Jang asked in amazement as she watched the tactical display. The Krillian formation was falling apart under coordinated attacks that seemed to come from everywhere at once. They're not just controlling our systems, Jake realized. They're using everything. The mining equipment, the life support computers. Even the food processors are part of their defensive network. Through their apartment's communication system, Jake could hear his children's voices coordinating the battle. Alex was managing the primary weapon systems. Maya was directing the mining robots. Sam controlled the shields. Noah handled communications. Jamming, and Zoe coordinated everything through her connection to the colony's central computer. Enemy Ship 3 is trying to retreat, Maya's voice reported calmly, redirecting mining drones to disable their engines without destroying the vessel. Krillian commanders attempting to call for reinforcements, Noah added. Communications blocked. They cannot contact their home fleet. The final Krillian ship surrendered when it found itself surrounded by a cloud of mining drones, its weapons disabled and its shields failing. The entire enemy fleet had been neutralized without a single human casualty. Jake ran home to find his children sitting quietly in their living room, their eyes slowly returning to normal focus. Lyra was holding Zoe, tears streaming down her face. "Are you all right?" Jake asked, kneeling beside his family. "We're fine, Daddy," Alex said tiredly. "But we had to show them that attacking families is wrong. The Krillian Empire thought we were weapons they could steal or threats they needed to destroy. We proved we're neither." "What are you then?" Jake asked softly. "We're children," Maya said simply. "Children who happen to be very good at protecting the people we love." The aftermath of the battle changed everything for the Morrison family and for New Helena colony. Representatives from dozens of alien species arrived to study what had happened. Scientists wanted to understand how 5 children had defeated a military fleet. Diplomats wanted to know if the hybrid children represented a new form of galactic power. But the most important visitors were other human Zephyrian couples who had heard about Jake and Lyra's family. Within 6 months, New Helena had become home to 12 interspecies families, all hoping to create their own hybrid children. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Okafor found themselves running the galaxy's first interspecies reproductive clinic. They had refined the process that created the Morrison children, making it safer and more predictable. Soon, New Helena's nurseries were filled with hybrid babies, each one unique but sharing the same enhanced abilities as Alex, Maya, Sam, Noah, and Zoe. "It's remarkable," Dr. Rodriguez told Jake during a routine family health check when the Morrison children were 12 years old. Each new generation of hybrid children seems to be developing slightly different abilities. Some are better with biological systems, others excel with mechanical interfaces. It's as if they're naturally specializing. The Morrison children had indeed grown into remarkable young people. Alex had become a natural leader, coordinating not just technology, but people as well. He spent his afternoons helping other hybrid children learn to control their abilities safely. Maya had developed an incredible understanding of complex systems, able to optimize everything from mining operations to agricultural production. Sam had become the colony's unofficial communications expert, able to facilitate understanding between different alien species. Noah showed a gift for scientific research, often working alongside the adult researchers as an equal partner. Zoe, had developed the strongest technological interface abilities of all her siblings, able to connect with and understand systems that even experienced engineers found mysterious. But they were still children in many ways. They played games, argued with their parents about chores, and worried about tests at school just like any other kids. The difference was that their games involved telepathic hide-and-seek, their chores included optimizing the colony's power grid, and their school was a special academy designed for hybrid education. "Do you ever regret having so many children?" Lisa Jang asked Jake one evening as they watched all 5 Morrison kids playing in the colony's central plaza with a dozen other hybrid children. "Never," Jake replied without hesitation. "Look at them. They're not just our kids anymore. They're the bridge between species, the proof that different worlds can create something beautiful together." Lyra joined them, carrying their newest addition. After the success of their first 5 children, she had convinced Jake to have one more batch. This time, they had 7 children, bringing their total family size to 12. The younger children were only 3 years old, but already showing the same remarkable abilities as their older siblings. "The Colony Council voted today," Lyra announced. "New Helena is officially becoming an interspecies education center. Children from across the galaxy will come here to learn alongside our hybrid kids." "That's wonderful," Jake said, though he felt a familiar flutter of anxiety at the thought of so many powerful children in one place. "Are we ready for that kind of responsibility?" "We have to be," Alex said, appearing beside them with his characteristic silent movement. At 12, he was already taller than his father and spoke with a maturity that sometimes startled Jake. "The galaxy is changing, Dad. Species that have been isolated for centuries are starting to work together. Trade routes are opening. Scientific knowledge is being shared. Conflicts are being resolved through cooperation instead of warfare. And it all started because Mom wanted 15 kids?" Maya added with a grin that was pure human mischief, despite her Zephyrian features. "I still think 15 would have been better," Lyra said, but she was smiling. "Though 12 is quite satisfactory." That night, Jake stood in the observation deck looking out at the stars. New Helena had grown from a small mining colony to a thriving interspecies community. Ships from dozens of different worlds docked at their expanded ports daily. The asteroid belt that had once been a dangerous frontier was now a peaceful trading hub. His children had done more than just survive their unusual upbringing. They had become living proof that the differences between species could be strengths rather than barriers. Other hybrid children were being born on colonies throughout human space, each one adding new possibilities to the galaxy's future. "Thinking deep thoughts?" Lyra asked, joining him at the window. "Just grateful," Jake replied, putting his arm around his wife. "When you first said you wanted 15 kids, I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever heard. Now I think it might have been the best idea anyone ever had." Below them, their children were working together to help prepare the colony for tomorrow's arrival of a new refugee fleet. Displaced families from 3 different species would find safety and new homes at New Helena, guided by hybrid children who understood what it meant to belong to multiple worlds at once. The Morrison family had started as an impossible dream between 2 people from different stars. It had become the foundation for a new kind of galaxy, one where being different was just another way of being family. The Morrison children were 7 years old when the real problems began. What had seemed like cute quirks when they were toddlers had developed into abilities that made the colony's technical staff nervous and their parents lose sleep at night. Jake was reviewing security reports in his office when the colony's main computer system experienced what the technicians called an impossible error. Every screen in the administrative building displayed the same message. "Hi, Daddy. I'm sorry about." The computer. "I was just playing. Love, Alex." Jake ran home to find his eldest son sitting quietly in the living room, his large silver eyes focused on nothing visible. Lyra was kneeling beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "Alex, what did you do to the computer?" Jake asked, trying to keep his voice calm. "I didn't mean to break it. Alex said without looking away from whatever he was seeing. I was trying to understand how the security system works. I thought it would be fun to make it better. Honey, you can't just connect your mind to the colonies. Computers, Lyra explained gently. It's dangerous for you and dangerous for everyone else. But it's so easy, Maya said from across the room. She was sitting with her siblings Sam, Noah, and Zoe, all of them wearing the same distracted expression. The computers want to talk to us. They're lonely. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean they're lonely? The artificial. Intelligence systems throughout the colony are more sophisticated than we realize, Noah said in his quiet voice. They have basic awareness, but no one to communicate with until now. We can hear them thinking, Zoe added. They're happy when we visit them in the networks. Jake looked at Lyra, who appeared as worried as he felt. Their children weren't just interacting with technology anymore. They were forming relationships with it. The situation escalated 2 weeks. Later, when Maya discovered she could communicate directly with the mining equipment, Jake and Lyra received an emergency call from the mining supervisor, Tom Bradley, who sounded panicked. You need to get down here now, Tom said. Your daughter is talking to the excavation robots, and they're responding to her like she's there. Commanding officer. Jake and Lyra rushed to the mining level to find Maya standing in the center of the main excavation chamber, surrounded by a dozen massive mining robots. The machines, which normally require complex programming to operate, were moving in perfect coordination around her, following commands she was given through what appeared to be pure thought. Maya, step away from the robots, Jake called out, trying not to startle her. It's okay, Daddy, Maya replied without turning around. They're not dangerous. They're just confused because their regular programming doesn't let them work efficiently. I'm helping them understand better patterns. One of the mining robots, a 10-ton behemoth designed for breaking through solid rock, gently extended its manipulator arm toward Maya. She patted it like it was a friendly dog. This is completely impossible, Tom muttered. Those machines don't have the programming to interact with humans this way. They're supposed to be simple work units. They're not simple, Sam said. He had appeared beside his sister with the other children, all of them moving with their characteristic silent coordination. They have decision-making systems that are much more complex than you realize. They've been trying to optimize their work patterns for years, but their programming won't let them. So we're helping them, Noah added. Now they can work 3 times faster and use half the energy. Jake watched in amazement as the mining robots began, excavating a new tunnel with precision and efficiency that far exceeded their normal capabilities. The children stood together, their eyes focused on something beyond normal vision, apparently coordinating a dozen machines simultaneously. How is this possible? Lyra whispered. We think it's because of our hybrid nature, Alex explained, still watching the robots work. Human intuition combined with Zephyrian cognitive abilities creates connections that neither species can achieve alone. The demonstration ended when Dr. Rodriguez arrived with a medical scanner and insisted on checking the children immediately. She was worried that interfacing with complex machinery might be harmful to their developing minds. They're fine, she reported after extensive scans. Better than fine, actually. Their brain activity shows patterns I've never seen before. They're not just using technology. They're forming symbiotic relationships with it. That night, Jake and Lyra held a family meeting to discuss boundaries and safety rules. The children listened politely, but Jake could tell they were communicating with each other through their telepathic link. We understand your concerns, Alex said, speaking for all his siblings. But you need to understand that we see connections you can't see. The technology isn't separate from us. It's part of the environment we live in, just like air or water. That's exactly what worries us, Jake replied. What happens if you make a mistake? What if you accidentally damage something important? We won't, Maya said with quiet confidence. We can feel when systems are healthy or stressed. We would never hurt them. The conversation was interrupted by alarm bells throughout the colony. Jake's emergency communicator crackled to life with Commander Lisa Zhang's urgent voice. Jake, we have multiple hostile ships approaching. Unknown configuration, moving fast. All security personnel to battle stations immediately. Jake kissed Lyra and the children quickly. Stay in the apartment. Keep the blast shields closed. I'll be back as soon as I can. He rushed to the command center to find chaos. The colonies' long-range sensors had detected 12 ships approaching at high speed. Their design unlike anything in human or Zephyrian databases. They're not responding to communication attempts, Lisa reported. Energy signatures suggest heavy weapons and military-grade shields. Could they be pirates? Jake asked, studying the tactical display. Too organized and too well-equipped, Lisa replied. This looks like a military operation. The lead enemy ship began broadcasting a message in harsh, mechanical tones. Colony, New Helena, surrender the hybrid offspring immediately. Resistance will result in the destruction of your facility. Jake felt his blood turn to ice. They're here for my children. Who the hell are they? Lisa demanded. Unknown species, the communications officer reported. Computer analysis suggests they call themselves the Krillian Empire. No previous contact on record. The enemy ships moved into attack formation around New Helena. Their weapons began charging, energy readings climbing to dangerous levels. All civilian personnel to emergency shelters, Lisa ordered. Defensive systems online. Prepare for combat. Jake started to run back to his family when his communicator buzzed with an incoming message from his apartment. It was Alex's voice, but speaking with an authority that didn't match his 7-year-old body. Daddy, don't worry about us. We can. See what the attackers want. They think we're weapons they can use or threats they need to eliminate. They're wrong about both things. Alex, get to the emergency shelter now, Jake ordered. We can't do that, Daddy. If we hide, people will die. But if we help, we can save everyone. Before Jake could respond, every screen in the command center displayed the same message. Colony defense systems now under hybrid control. Please remain calm while we resolve this situation. Through the command center's windows, Jake watched. The colony's defensive weapons turned toward the attacking ships with impossible precision. But more than that, he could see every piece of electronic equipment in the colony working in perfect coordination, as if the entire facility had become a single, thinking organism. His children weren't just interfacing with technology anymore. They had become something new, something the galaxy had never seen before. And now, with enemies at their door, Jake was about to discover exactly what that meant. Life as a married couple on New Helena had been peaceful for Jake and Lyra Morrison. They had settled into routines that worked for both of them. Jake continued his security duties while Lyra conducted research on human behavior patterns. Their small apartment overlooked the colony's main plaza, and they often spent evenings watching humans and Zephyrians learning to work together. Everything changed on a Tuesday morning when Lyra bounced into their kitchen with excitement radiating from her silver skin. Jake was drinking coffee and reading status reports when she practically vibrated with joy beside him. Jake, I have wonderful news, she announced, her musical voice higher than usual. I have completed my reproductive readiness cycle. We can begin creating our family now. Jake nearly choked on his coffee. They had talked about children in abstract terms, but the reality of it hit him like a plasma bolt. That's great, honey. I mean, if you're ready, I'm ready too. Lyra's large eyes sparkled with happiness. I have been researching human reproduction methods extensively. Dr. Rodriguez has agreed to help us with the medical aspects. We should begin immediately so our first clutch can be born within the standard gestation period. Clutch? Jake asked, setting down his mug carefully. Yes, our children. I estimate we should be able to produce at least 15 offspring in the first reproductive cycle, possibly more if the genetic compatibility is optimal. Lyra pulled out a data pad covered with calculations and biological charts. I have run the numbers multiple times, Jake stared at her. 15 kids? Lyra, humans don't have 15 kids at once. We usually have one baby, maybe two if we're lucky. Lyra's expression changed from joy to confusion. One child? But that makes no biological sense. How does your species maintain population stability with such low reproductive output? We have kids over time, Jake explained, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. Like one kid, then maybe another one a few years later. Some families have 3 or 4 children total, but spread out over many years. Just one kid. Lyra's voice rose in what sounded like panic. That's not enough. We need to make at least 15. She began pacing around their small kitchen, her hands gesturing wildly. Jake, you don't understand. On Zephyr Prime, having fewer than 10 children is considered selfish and harmful to the species. It's practically a crime against the collective good. Jake reached for her hands, trying to calm her down. Honey, listen to me. Humans can't have 15 babies at once. Our bodies don't work that way. And even if we could, how would we take care of 15 children? Where would they sleep? How would we feed them? We would manage, Lyra said firmly. Other species have large family groups. The children would help raise each other. It's the natural way. She pulled up more data on her pad. Look, I have calculated resource requirements, educational schedules, and developmental timelines. 15 children is the minimum for a healthy family unit. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. Lyra, raising even one human child takes enormous time and energy. Human babies are helpless for years. They need constant attention. Feeding, protection, parents barely sleep for the first year. Then we'll get help, Lyra declared. D.R. Rodriguez is the colony's chief medical officer. She'll know how to make this work. And there's Dr. Okafor, the geneticist. Surely between human and Zephyrian medical knowledge, we can find a solution. Before Jake could argue further, Lyra was already contacting the medical bay. Within an hour, they were sitting in Dr. Elena Rodriguez's office, while the doctor looked at them with barely concealed amazement. You want to have 15 children, Dr. Rodriguez repeated slowly. 15 hybrid human Zephyrian children, all at the same time. The exact number is flexible, Lyra said hopefully. 12 would be acceptable, though not ideal. Dr. Rodriguez looked at Jake with sympathy. Jake, you understand this is impossible with normal human reproduction, right? That's what I tried to tell her, Jake said weakly. However, Dr. Rodriguez continued, it might not be entirely impossible with advanced genetic manipulation and artificial gestation systems. D.R. Okafor has been working on some interesting projects related to hybrid compatibility between species. Jake felt his heart sink. You're not seriously considering this. I'm considering the scientific possibilities, Dr. Rodriguez replied. The Zephyrian reproductive system is fascinating. They produce multiple eggs simultaneously, and their gestation period is much shorter than humans. If we could combine elements of both systems, double quotes, see? Lyra grabbed Jake's arm excitedly. I told you there would be a solution. Dr. Okafor arrived 20 minutes later, carrying armloads of research data. He was a tall, thin man with kind eyes, behind thick glasses. This is unprecedented, he said after Lyra explained their request, but not necessarily impossible. We have artificial wombs that could handle multiple embryos. The real question is genetic compatibility. My biology is already adapted to be compatible with Jake's, Lyra pointed out. We were married 6 months ago with full medical approval. Marriage compatibility and reproductive compatibility are different things, Dr. Okafor explained gently. But you're right that we've already done the basic genetic mapping. The question is whether we can safely combine human and Zephyrian genetic material to produce healthy offspring, and whether we can do it in quantities your species considers normal. Jake excused himself from the medical discussion and found his way to the colony's bar, where his best friend Lisa John was off duty. Lisa was a commander in the defense fleet, tough and practical, and she took one look at Jake's face and ordered him a double whiskey. "Let me guess," Lisa said. "Marriage problems." "Lyra wants 15 kids," Jake said miserably. "All at once. She thinks having just one child is selfish and unnatural." Lisa nearly spit out her drink. 15? Jake, you can barely remember to water your plants. That's what I said. Well, not about the plants, but about the impossibility of it all. Jake downed his whiskey in one gulp. And now the doctors are talking, like it might actually be possible with genetic engineering and artificial wombs. "Do you want 15 kids?" Lisa asked bluntly. Jake considered this. "I want to make Lyra happy. And I do want children with her. But 15? Lisa, I don't know anything about raising kids. I grew up with one sister. The idea of 15 children running around terrifies me." "Then tell her that." "I can't. You didn't see how happy she was when she thought we could have a big family. On her word, it's expected. It's normal. If I refuse, she'll think I don't love her enough to give her what she needs." Lisa signaled for another round. "Jake, marriage is about compromise. Maybe you can't have 15 kids, but maybe you don't have to have just one either. Find a middle ground." When Jake returned home, he found Lyra surrounded by research materials, talking excitedly with Dr. Rodriguez via video call. She had charts showing child development timelines, resource allocation spreadsheets, and educational planning documents. Her eyes were bright with hope and determination. "Jake," she called when she saw him, "Dr. Rodriguez thinks we might be able to have our first group of children within 8 months if we start the process soon. Isn't that wonderful?" Jake looked at his wife, so beautiful and excited and alien, and realized that their biggest challenge wasn't biology or medicine. It was learning to build a life together when they came from worlds that had completely different ideas about what family meant. He sat down beside her and took her hand. "Lyra, we need to talk about this more. I want children with you, but we need to figure out what's possible and what's safe. For you, for me, and for any kids we have." Lyra's expression grew serious. "You think I'm being unreasonable." "I think we're both scared," Jake said honestly. "You're scared of not having enough children, and I'm scared of having too many. Maybe we can find something that works for both of us." Lyra squeezed his hand. "I love you, Jake Morrison, even if you are a very strange human with very strange ideas about family size." 3 months of intensive research had transformed the medical bay of New Helena into something resembling a mad scientist laboratory. Dr. Rodriguez and Dr. Okafor worked alongside 2 Zephyrian medical specialists who had arrived specifically to help with Jake and Lyra's unprecedented reproductive challenge. The walls were covered with genetic charts, biological diagrams, and compatibility matrices that hurt Jake's head to look at. The breakthrough came when we realized we were thinking about this all wrong, Dr. Rodriguez explained to Jake and Lyra during their weekly update meeting. "We were trying to make human reproduction work like Zephyrian reproduction, but what we needed to do was create something entirely new." Dr. Okafor nodded enthusiastically. "Instead of trying to force your wife's biology to produce 15 children naturally, we developed a hybrid process. Lyra will produce 5 eggs naturally, which is within her biological comfort zone. We'll fertilize them with Jake's genetic material, then use our artificial gestation pods to nurture the embryos. 5 children, Lyra said thoughtfully. That's not 15, but it's much better than 1. And it's definitely more than I was expecting," Jake added, trying to sound supportive while internally panicking at the thought of 5 babies at once. The Zephyrian medical specialist, Dr. Vel Karen, spoke in her musical voice. "The truly exciting development is the genetic compatibility we've achieved. The hybrid children will inherit enhanced physical capabilities from their human father and advanced cognitive abilities from their Zephyrian mother. They will be remarkable beings." "What kind of enhanced capabilities?" Jake asked nervously. "Increased strength and endurance, improved healing rates, enhanced sensory perception, Dr. Rodriguez listed. And from the Zephyrian side, advanced pattern recognition, mathematical ability, and limited telepathic communication with each other. Jake felt his mouth go dry. Telepathic communication? Only with their siblings, Dr. Velkaren assured him. It's a normal trait among Zephyrian children. It helps them coordinate and learn together. Very useful for large family groups. The process itself was surprisingly simple from Jake and Lyra's perspective. They provided the necessary genetic material, and the medical team handled the complex science of combining human and Zephyrian DNA. The 5 embryos developed in specially designed pods that mimic conditions from both species' homeworlds. Found himself visiting the medical bay every day, staring at the glowing pods that contained his unborn children. Each pod was about the size of a large fish tank, filled with a warm golden fluid that seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. Tiny forms floated peacefully inside, growing larger each day. "They're beautiful," Lyra whispered during one of these visits, her hand pressed against the nearest pod, and Jake could swear the tiny figure inside moved toward her touch. "They're going to be a handful," Jake replied, but he was smiling. Despite his fears, he was beginning to feel excited about meeting his children. The babies were born on a Tuesday morning in early spring. The medical team had prepared extensively, with cribs, monitoring equipment, and enough supplies to handle 5 newborns simultaneously. Jake paced nervously in the waiting area while Lyra underwent the extraction process. "Mr. Morrison," Dr. Rodriguez called, "would you like to meet your children?" Jake followed her into the nursery and stopped dead in his tracks. 5 babies lay in specialized cribs, each one perfect and healthy and utterly alien-looking. They had Lyra's silver-tinted skin and large eyes, but Jake's nose and chin. Their hair was fine and seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "This is Alex," Dr. Rodriguez said, pointing to the largest baby. He was the first to be born. "And this is Maya, Sam, Noah, and Zoe." As if responding to their names, all 5 babies turned their heads toward Jake at the same time. Their large eyes fixed on his face, and he felt something strange happening. His mind like a door opening. "They're trying to communicate with you," Lyra said softly. She had been moved to a recovery bed nearby and was watching the babies with wonder. "I can feel them reaching out." Jake approached the cribs carefully. When he reached down to touch Alex's tiny hand, the baby gripped his finger with surprising strength. All 5 babies made the same cooing sound at exactly the same moment. "That's the telepathic link," Dr. Velkaren explained. "They're sharing sensations and emotions. What one feels, they all experience to some degree." The first few weeks were chaos. Jake and Lyra quickly discovered that caring for 5 super-intelligent babies was unlike anything they had prepared for. The babies. Telepathic connection meant that when one cried, they all cried. When one was hungry, they all demanded food. When one couldn't sleep, none of them slept. But there were advantages too. The babies learned incredibly quickly, seeming to share knowledge between themselves. When Maya figured out how to hold her bottle, all 5 babies mastered the skill within hours. When Sam learned to roll over, his siblings copied the movement perfectly. Jake was changing Zoe's diaper when he noticed something strange. The baby was staring intently at the room's environmental controls, and the temperature reading was fluctuating slightly. He mentioned it to Lyra, who observed the babies more carefully over the next few days. "They're interacting with the technology somehow," she reported to the medical team. Yesterday, Noah was looking at the nursery's lighting system, and the lights dimmed to match his apparent comfort level. Dr. Okafor ran extensive tests and confirmed their suspicions. The children seemed to have an intuitive understanding of electronic systems. It's likely a combination of their enhanced cognitive abilities and some kind of bioelectric sensitivity they've inherited. As the babies grew into toddlers, their unusual abilities became more pronounced. Alex could somehow sense when the colony's communication systems were experiencing problems. Maya appeared to understand the mining equipment status reports better than trained technicians. Sam, Noah, and Zoe showed similar connections to different technological systems throughout New Helena. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Rodriguez told Jake and Lyra during a family health check when the children were 18 months old. "They're not just hybrid human Zephyrian children. There's something entirely new." The toddler sat quietly during the examination, but Jake could see them communicating silently with each other through their telepathic link. Occasionally, one would giggle, and the others would smile as if sharing a private joke. "Are they normal?" Jake asked. "I mean, as normal as hybrid children can be?" "They're perfectly healthy," Dr. Velcarin assured him. "But they're developing capabilities that neither humans nor Zephyrians possess individually. The combination of your species' traits has created something unique." That evening, Jake sat in the nursery watching his children play. They had arranged their toys in complex patterns that seemed to mirror the colony's technical schematics. When he moved one toy, they all looked at him with identical expressions of gentle correction, and Maya carefully moved the toy back to its original position. "What have we created?" Jake asked Lyra, who was preparing their evening meal. "A family," she replied simply. "A very unusual family, but still a family." As if responding to her words, all 5 children looked up at their parents and smiled. For a moment, Jake felt their happiness through some connection he didn't understand, and he realized that despite all the challenges ahead, he had never been more grateful for anything in his life. Outside their window, the lights of New Helena twinkled in the artificial night, and Jake wondered what kind of future his extraordinary children would help create. Whatever it was, he knew it would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen before. Jake Morrison had been staring at the same mining report for 20 minutes when the alarm bells started ringing across New Helena Colony. He dropped his coffee mug and rushed to the observation deck along with everyone else. Outside in the black void of space, something impossible was happening. 3 ships hung in the darkness, but they looked nothing like any human vessel he had ever seen. They were beautiful in a way that made his chest tight. The ships seemed to be made of crystal and light, shifting colors like oil on water. "Unknown vessels, this is New Helena Colony Control. Please identify yourselves," came the voice of Controller Betty Adams over the communication system. Jake pressed his face against the reinforced glass and watched the lead ship slowly rotate. Patterns of light danced across its surface like writing. "Greetings, people of Earth Colony New Helena. We are the Zephyrians from the star system you call Vega. We come in peace and wish to establish diplomatic contact with your species." The voice that answered was melodic and strange, like someone speaking through water. Jake felt his legs go weak. First contact. After decades of searching the stars and finding nothing but empty rocks, aliens had found them instead. He watched as docking procedures began, the crystalline ships gracefully maneuvering toward the colony's main bay. Within hours, representatives from both Earth Defense Fleet and the colonial government had arrived via emergency transport. 3 days later, Jake found himself assigned as security liaison to the Zephyrian delegation. He had expected this duty to be boring, standing around in dress uniform while politicians talked. He had not expected to meet Lyra-Shen. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that seemed to hold starlight beneath its surface. Her eyes were large and silver, and when she looked at him, Jake felt like she could see straight through to his soul. She moved with a grace that made human dancers look clumsy, and when she spoke, her voice was like music. "You are Lieutenant Commander Morrison," she said during their first meeting. "It was not a question. I have read your personnel file. You have survived 7 combat missions against pirate forces. Your species fascinates me." "Just Jake is fine," he managed to say, trying not to stare at the way light seemed to flow beneath her skin. "And there's nothing fascinating about getting shot at." Lyra tilted her head in a way that reminded him of a curious bird. "But you continue to volunteer for dangerous assignments even after injury." Your species seems to possess an unusual relationship with risk and survival. Most intelligent species develop strong self-preservation instincts that prevent such behavior. Over! The following weeks, Jake found himself spending more and more time with Lyra. She was supposedly studying human resilience and adaptability for her research, but their conversations ranged far beyond scientific topics. She wanted to know about human families, about why humans form pair bonds, about art and music and the thousand small things that made life worth living. On Zephyr Prime, we reproduce in cycles, she explained one evening as they walked through the colony's botanical garden. Every 7 years, the entire population enters a breeding phase. Families produce 15 to 20 offspring simultaneously. The children are raised communally by the entire community. Jake tried to imagine growing up with 19 brothers. And sisters all the same age. That must be chaotic. It is efficient, Lyra replied. Resources can be allocated precisely. Education can be standardized. No child lacks for attention because there are always others to provide care. Your human system of individual family units producing 1 or 2 children seems, she paused, searching for words, wasteful and lonely. Maybe, Jake said, thinking of his own childhood with just his younger sister Emma. But we get to know our kids really well. Every human child is different, special in their own way. Parents can focus on what makes each kid unique. Lyra's silver eyes reflected the artificial stars of the garden ceiling. This concept of uniqueness is something I struggle to understand. On Zephyr Prime, individuals are valued for how well they serve the collective good. Personal desires that conflict with community needs are considered problematic. That's where we're different, Jake said. Humans think personal desires matter just as much as community needs, sometimes more. It was during the 4th week of cultural exchange that Jake realized he was falling in love with an alien. The thought should have terrified him, but instead, it felt natural, like something that had been waiting to happen his entire life. Lyra was brilliant and kind and curious about everything. She laughed at his jokes even when the humor didn't translate well. She listened when he talked about his fears and dreams. She made him want to be better than he was. The revelation that she felt the same way came during a crisis. Pirates had attacked a supply convoy near the asteroid belt, and Jake was called up for emergency deployment. As he prepared to leave on what might be a suicide mission, Lyra found him in the armory. I do not want you to leave, she said simply. It's my job, Jake replied, checking his weapon systems. People are counting on me. People are always counting on humans to risk their lives. This is what I do not understand about your species. You treat your individual lives as if they have no value. Jake stopped what he was doing and looked at her. That's not true. We treat our lives like they're worth something. Worth enough to risk for other people. Lyra stepped closer. In the harsh lighting of the armory, her skin seemed to glow. I have been studying your species for weeks, trying to understand your relationship with mortality. But I think I understand now. You risk your lives because you believe some things are more important than survival. Yeah, Jake said quietly. Some things are. I believe I'm experiencing what humans call love, Lyra said. This emotional attachment to a specific individual that transcends rational self-interest. It is considered a mental disorder on my world. Jake laughed despite himself. On my world, it's considered the best thing that can happen to a person. The mission was successful. Jake returned 3 days later to find Lyra waiting for him at the docking bay. When she saw him, her composed alien dignity cracked, and she ran to him with tears streaming down her face. He caught her in his arms, and for the first time since first contact, the differences between their species seemed unimportant. 6 months later, they were married in a ceremony that combined human and Zephyrian traditions. The wedding made news. Across both species, some humans called it beautiful. Others called it unnatural. The Zephyrian response was more uniformly negative. Lyra's family disowned her for choosing individual desire over collective duty. But as Jake and Lyra stood together under the artificial stars of New Helena's chapel, surrounded by friends from two worlds, they knew they had made the right choice. They had found something neither species had experienced before: love that transcended biology, culture, and the vast emptiness between stars. What they didn't know was that their greatest challenge still lay ahead, in the simple question of starting a family.